Welcome back. The Pope has criticised people who are ravenous for wealth and power in his Christmas address from the Vatican today, as thousands gathered to hear the head of the Catholic Church give his annual Urbi et Orbi sermon at St. Peter's Basilica. Well, joining me now to discuss the sermon is the CEO of Catholic Voices, Brenden Thompson. Good to have you with us this Christmas Day. Thanks very much indeed for taking time out to join us. So tell us your take on what Pope Francis had to say.
Yeah, so this is Pope Francis's 10th Urbi et Orbi speech. So he does these speeches every Christmas and every Easter. And I guess the thing I noticed most of all is that this is the first one that didn't have any pandemic restrictions. But he spoke instead quite powerfully that even though there is a vaccine for COVID, there isn't a vaccine for the people suffering in Ukraine. And so there was quite a special place within his homily yesterday at midnight mass, but also today in his Christmas address for the people of Ukraine, asking people to really look at the face and the suffering and the experiences of the people of Ukraine, particularly by reflecting on the figure of the Christ child, to look at these situations with a worldly, kind of politician's head, but to look at it from the perspective of the children who are suffering in this. So it's always a message of peace. It has been for the past 10 years. Peace is the kind of central theme, but mediated through this image of a child.
Well, yeah, that's a nice insight into that. So let's talk in more detail. We'll talk about what he said about doing good at Christmas, but the notion of people who are ravenous for power and riches, what do you think he was trying to get people to understand from that and to respond? How should they respond to that?
Yeah, so he wants us to learn, as he says, from Jesus, who he calls the Prince of Peace and the path of peace. He talks that still there is the icy winds of war, is the phrase he used in his speech today. And speaking particularly today in a way he didn't yesterday about the situation in Ukraine. He also speaks about warfare elsewhere. But he says that there are things that block the grace of Christmases, the grace of Christmas. So things like greed and pride, thirst for power. These are problems as old as the world itself. But unless we come to these situations with the humility of a child, with a sense of peace, and without Christ, who gives a peace, he says, that the world can't give, then we will continue on this ravenous path, as he says, for greed and destruction. And so kind of decries the kind of senseless war, as he calls it, and invites politicians, particularly to find concrete solutions to be able to navigate the difficulties of the future as we arrive in the 10th month of the Ukrainian conflict.
And let's also talk about the moment where he said, let's do something good this Christmas as well.
Yes, Pope Francis said in his midnight mass homily yesterday to not let the season go by without doing something good. He spoke a lot about the consumerism of Christmas, that amid all of the preparations and the decorations, and he likened it to the preparations that were happening for the Holy Family. So when Jesus and Mary and Joseph and all of the chaos there, we can experience something of that chaos, that it's good to get with family, but the decorations can help us to miss not only the suffering of the most marginalized, and he speaks here about refugees, those who are displaced because of war, those who are suffering, but also let's not neglect our concrete, the common good, our concrete needs to serve other people, but also to be a sign of hope and a witness of hope to a world that sorely needs it.
Okay.